Hey, sorry about that. Talking too much. Um, Here's the Outlaw Saint album. Never saw it coming. Um, there are probably still some available, so go to an Outlaw Saint show and see if you can get a copy. It's pretty good. Um, I know they're in the midst of recording their follow up. So yeah, do a favor, give Max or thanks some money and buy the album. It's pretty good. So where was I? Shows, yeah. We played Terminal. We played Club Underground once with this lineup. We played Pickle Park again, second show. We also played a place called Pogs. Do you remember Pogs? We played there, I think, a couple times with a couple different bands. So yeah, so that train was kind of rolling along. SMUJ'D was kind of rolling along. At some point after the casino show, Doug left. So we were down to a 4-piece again. And so we had guitar auditions, second round of second guitar auditions. And this is what I was thinking of before, because one of the people that auditioned at that point was my old buddy Cyrus from Talisman. It was weird. It was because I hadn't spoken to him in years. And Pico comes in and says, I have an audition, this guy named Cy. And I'm like, I used to know a Cy, I wonder if it's the same guy. Turns out, bam, same guy. Came in, played just as well as he did in '97. For some reason didn't get the gig. I don't remember the exact reason, but whatever. He's doing fine now, don't worry about him. Is in a band called Fog Pilot. They play all the time. He's doing fine, don't worry about him. And then the other guy, or one of the other people that we auditioned, was a guy who went by the moniker of Iron Ike. I don't recall his real name, which is bad. I should remember his real name. But he was out of South Dakota, North Dakota, somewhere, one of the Dakotas. Interesting gentleman. Him and Jerry meshed really well. This was the sad part about this. They actually meshed really well. And I think if we could have reined him in a little bit, it probably could have been really, really good. But he was just a little bit too eccentric for us, a little bit too, I don't know. We played with him for a while, for a month, maybe a couple months, I don't remember. And then just, he just didn't work out, and we didn't let him go, and then we were 4-piece again. And then we did a couple of other shows. I think that's when we did, we actually did a couple of shows. Outlaw Saint and SMUJ'D did at least 1 or 2 shows together. We did one show together at Club Underground. I think we may have done one at the Terminal too, I don't remember. But during these shows, we're discovering that Cam is becoming more of an issue. At some point, he had stopped drinking and started smoking a shitload of pot, which did not help. And things were just getting a little weird. His performances were getting a little out there. I think the final. Well, we did a show in Elmwood, Wisconsin. This is kind of a big deal. I'm looking at the poster now. Elmwood, which is where Jerry's wife Amy is from, and it was at their city auditorium. I mean, it's a little town, but in their city auditorium. And we were opening for a band called Silent Redemption I think they're out of Iowa. A band called Favor the Fall, which I think are local to Elmwood. I believe, and then it was supposed to be Emergent, who was like a bigger band. And we were like, we got this gig, and we're like, wow, this is awesome. Playing in the City Auditorium, it's gonna be great. And first thing that happened on that show was that Emergent was having personnel issues. I think the singer had just left or something. Anyway, they had to drop out. So we didn't have our big headliner, so everything just moved up. So Favor of the Fall became the headliner, then Silent Redemption, then we still opened it. And it was, seemed cool. We got there and set up. I've got pictures of the stage, which City Auditorium, but it felt like an old school, like a high school gym or something, which is interesting, kind of weird and kind of cool. But I've got some pictures of that set up, and we've got like our banner in the back. It looks really cool. But we go on to play, and it was cool because they had like sound and professional sound and lights. There were fog machines, 2 fog machines right next to me, and blowing up smoke, and it was kind of awesome. That was really like a rock star moment, even more than the casino. The casino was like a rock star moment. This is like a rock star moment. So that was cool. But like first song, we noticed Cam is like stumbling over lyrics and not remembering them, and something is not quite right. Apparently he had taken, I believe, an Adderall or something before the show, and you probably shouldn't do that. So anyway, we kind of stumbled through that set. I mean, it's a shame because everything else about that show was really, really great. Meeting the other 2 bands, we hung out with I don't know if it was Favor of the Fall or Silent Redemption. Well, afterwards we got done with our set, took everything off, breaking it down. We went to the downstairs, like the dressing room area. I think there was like pizza down there, and I think it must have been Favor of the Fall because Silent Redemption were going to be on stage. And we were hanging out with them and eating pizza, and then it's like, oh, Silent Redemption's on, so we went up, and I was kind of standing in the back like I do, and the singer guitar player kind of came over and encouraged me forward, and kind of got together. And point being, aside from the fact that Cam kind of lost his mind during that show, the rest of it was really good. Silent Redemption was really good. Favor of the Fall was really good. We went back to Amy's, is it her parents' house? One of her relatives' house, who still lived in town, and this is a small town, Wisconsin, and very atypical small town in Wisconsin. So a little creepy single bed, really creaky floors, and there I slept. And anyway, got up the next morning. The other funny thing that happened during that show is that I think they were using, somehow the smoke alarm went off. Not sprinklers, but the smoke alarm went off. And eventually we had to have someone turn it off. And so this is City Auditorium, 2nd floor, where the actual auditorium was. But since the fire alarm had gone off, it knocked out the elevators. So we had to carry all of our crap downstairs, which was not very fun. After loading it all in, setting it up, playing the show, etc. Anyway, the other funny small town disruptive moment was next morning. We're in the midst of getting ready to go, and me and Jerry, he wants to go get like a coffee or something, and for whatever reason, instead of walking the 5 blocks or whatever it was down to the gas station, he decides to drive. Get in his truck with the trailer and, drive there a couple of turns, whatever. We start to hear the siren. And we're like, okay, that's kind of weird. Very loud. And this is like, 8 o'clock or something on a Sunday morning. So, pull up to the gas station and still hearing it and asking, one of the locals, like, is that like, a silo alarm or something? And like, I don't know. And it takes us, so we get in, get whatever, get back in the truck, drive back. It took us almost all the way back to the house to figure out, what had happened. And, hearing it, and what had happened is that Cam had a megaphone that he used for a couple songs. And what had happened is that part of my drum hardware, the rack, had fallen onto the button, the alarm button, and triggered it, and it was reverbing around this metal trailer out into the town at 7:30, 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and scaring the crap out of everybody. And there were people coming out of their houses and looking through the windows and wondering what the hell's going on. So then 10, 15 minutes later, we're getting ready to leave, and so we get that back here and open up the trailer, and he dislodges it or whatever. Go to leave, take another turn. What do you think happens? Somehow it activates again, so it immediately pulls over, takes it out, takes the batteries out, throws the batteries in the trailer, and says, "Fucking, let's go." So yeah, that was the other thing that happened, is that we pretty much woke up a small town with a siren, which is always fun. Always fun, kids. Always fun to wake up a small town with an alarm at 7:30 in the morning. So then I think the show that we played after that, which was kind of the final straw, as far as Cam was concerned. We played a show at the terminal, and he was just acting off, not singing very well. If you've ever been to the terminal, they kind of have, it's kind of broken up into 2 rooms, kind of. They have like, what do you call them? Ledges in between the 2 rooms on the center aisle, and the ledges. During instrumental passages, he would go and climb onto the ledges and kind of sit there. It was just an odd night. It was a weird night, and we all had been talking to him, and after that show we decided, we probably need to do something, have a discussion with him. So we got together and had a meeting and listed out all of our grievances and blah blah blah. And it turns out, and then next practice we were going to talk to him. Well, Jerry had a couple of beers one night, or a couple of days before we were supposed to meet Saturday, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday, and called Cam and warned him about this. And next practice we're gonna have to sit down and talk about some things. And as soon as we showed up at practice and Jerry told us that, we were like, somehow we found out that he had called Cam, and we were like, well, shit, now Cam has 2 days to sit and stew and probably get really pissed. But we came in to the room, and it was me and Jerry, and I think Cam was already there, if I remember. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, walked in, and Cam was sitting very still and very silently with his head down. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because it was me, Cam, and Pico. And we're like, okay, thinking in my head, this is a little not what I expected. And so, waiting for Jerry, and Pico's just like, are we waiting for Pico? I don't remember exactly who all was there, but one of us was missing. And, I think Jerry was missing. So Pico was just like, okay, we're just going to talk and start internet, and Cam was, sitting there kind of slowly nodding, very still and quiet, which is not his personality at all, because he's usually not hyperactive, but very, so to see him still was kind of eerie. And he, Pico laid out what he had to say, and I, kind of brought up a couple points, kind of, added some things. And Cam was basically agreed with everything we said. And I was like, yes. And it's weird. He stated that he was thinking about it, thinking hard about it, and probably thinking about the last show and all that stuff, and said that him being in this band was impacting what he could be as a husband and father. And we were like, okay. And he was like, so I decided to remove myself from it. And we were like, okay, that makes our job easier. So that was done deal. And then Jerry showed up shortly after that, ready to have a big discussion. We're like, yeah, done deal. He agrees and stepping away, and which I, obviously for the sake of the band, I agreed with it. But if you recognize that you're not in a good place, not to get all preachy, but if you recognize you're not in a good place, and you have the ability and the opportunity to remove yourself from it, just do it. It's easier in the end. You'll be happier, etc., etc. So he made the very adult decision to remove himself from that and focus on his family, which we all applauded. We were like, yeah, that's great. Whatever you got to do, man, do it. So that left us without a singer, and we played. So then we were like, okay, we have to rethink some things, because now Pico was going to take over on vocals for a little bit until we found a new singer. But Pico is a very busy bass player. He likes very complicated stuff, but when he's singing, he can't do a lot of that. So we have to learn. So we have to go through the songs and say, okay, what's the stuff that Pico can sing and play? And that took about half of our list out. So we had to learn a bunch of new, easier stuff. And we started learning, like, some Kiss and some, I don't remember, Danzig, stuff like that. Stuff that Pico could sing and still play. And then we did a couple shows as a trio. In fact, one of those shows as a trio was a show at Club Underground with Outlaw Saint. So, but I think that might have been after I had left. Anyway, so meanwhile, while this is going on, and probably a little bit before, Outlaw Saint is going, and just something about it. Okay, so when I joined Battle of the Bands, we record, do the album, have the album release party, do an interview. There used to be a show called Meet the Locals. It was an internet show, I guess, hosted by this lady named female person named April Wallace. And she interviewed me and Tank and D-Man for the show, which was kind of cool. And did that. So it seemed like in the time I was in that band, we did a lot of stuff, like not just playing shows, but like, recording the album, doing the interview, and blah, blah, blah. But there was just something grinding on me. I don't know what it was. Also during this time, Ed, the guitar player in Outlaw Saint, had the idea of bringing back another band that he used to be in called Garage Orphans. And I was, at that point, I was just like, yeah, I'll play whatever, whoever, wherever. So we decided to bring back Garage Orphans using myself and D-Man as a bass player, and to bring back his old singer, Tommy. So, and Outlaw Saint sometimes had a second guitar player, sometimes didn't, because Jerry left before I did, and then we used this other guy named Dave, who again was another former member, and he was kind of in and out, and he was also in and out of Garage Orphans. Very talented guy, really nice guy, but again has some issues, and we'll just leave it at that. So essentially what happened for a while during, let's say, late summer into fall of 2015 is not only was I in 3 bands, but 2 of those bands were essentially the same band with different singers, personnel-wise, not musically-wise. And so, and so, the four of us in Garage Orphans got together and learned a bunch of stuff fairly quickly, and I think started dating out fairly quickly. And for a while, we were playing, and this is how I learned to love the Terminal, because we were playing the Terminal at least once a month for a good while. I mean, I don't know how long, but a good while. I felt like we were there like at least once a month. Like we would get done with the show, and immediately Ed would be talking to either Flem or his wife, Adele, I don't know her name, about booking the next month. So, which was fine, because I loved the Terminal. As I stated before, I played the Terminal every weekend if I could, because I just liked that place. So I was in 3 bands, and there was a lot of crossover in gigs. Garage Orphans and Outlaw Saint did at least 1 show together. Orphans and SMUJ'D did at least 1 show together. And then SMUJ'D was doing shows on their own, and Outlaw Saint was doing. So there was a lot of crossover, a lot of playing. It was a lot of music for a very short, intense time. But I don't know. I just started getting burned out, and I don't want to be. Don't want to say anything disparaging about anybody, but I just got kind of tired of Tank's persona. Is that how I put it? Just something about him eventually started to rub me the wrong way. And again, like Cam, I felt I had to remove myself from that situation. So that happened, I believe, end of November 2015. I left Outlaw Saint, and D-Man actually left, I think, by the end of that year. So we're into 2016, and SMUJ'D is still going, and Garage Orphans is still going, and we knew that Ed was sick, that he had cancer. We didn't know exactly how serious. We knew that he had been going back and forth to the Mayo and stuff like that. And I'll wrap this up quick and then I'll do another one. So we knew upcoming, like in March some point, he was going to go down to Mayo for some sort of major surgery. We weren't sure exactly what, but we knew that was coming up. So we did a couple of gigs earlier that year. And then we did, I think, one of the last, me and Ed and Tommy went down to Pickle Park before it closed and reopened. And I believe did one of the last open mic nights that Marcus was hosting. And we went down there, and actually, there wasn't a whole lot of musicians there, but we got up there and we played for a good 20, 25 minutes, something like that. Ending with our little modified version of Freebird, which is a song I've always wanted to play, and I'm like, if we're gonna play, I don't think we ever played it on stage, because I was like, if we're gonna do Freebird, we're going to do it right. We're going to do the 15-minute live version with the extended guitar solos and do it right. But we did a little modified version of it that night. I think that's the last thing we played. And then Ed, like the next weekend or whatever, went down to the Mayo to have the surgery, and he didn't come back. He had passed, which was, again, hard for all of us because, we had these plans in place and we're going to do all this stuff. And it was kind of like, oh, now Ed's gone. And this was his baby. And what do we do? And we tried to continue. We had run one rehearsal at Dave's house because he was back in the band at that point. So it was me and D-Man and Dave and Tommy. We had one rehearsal at Dave's house, which didn't feel right. It just something wasn't right about it. And I think I made the decision first, and I said, Garage Orphans was always Ed's thing. I was happy to be a part of it, but if he's not going to be leading us into battle, I don't know if I can do this. And again, remove myself from that situation, which everybody understood. I mean, everybody's cool. Everybody's like, yeah, completely. It was Ed's thing, and there you go. So within, 5 months, I went from being in 3 bands to being in 1 band again. So that very intense, heavily working period was no more, and I was just 1 band. And part 7, part 3, subtext 3, I'll talk about SMUJ'D and what I'm doing now. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you later.